Calcast, this is almost here with Jedi Survivor, and I'm going to break down everything that you need to know about the base mechanics of the game and everything that the game will have to offer to you before you decide to purchase the game. Of course, it is always wise to wait for reviews and see what is it that we get as an end product. But if you still want to try to pre-purchase the game, which is something that I do not advise that much, I am going to show you everything that you need to know about the game. So let's start with the basics. The release date, that is going to be in April 28th, and it's only going to be for next gen, so you will be able to play this game on your PlayStation 5, Xbox Series S and X, and your PC. No console last previous gen's console game release, so that is a bummer for people that haven't upgraded yet, but it's something indeed good for people that are still believe or that we feel that the games are being hindered by the previous generation. Now, the combat system will still be like the Souls kind of combat system, although the developers did receive some player feedback with people that complained in the previous game that it was still way too difficult. I would say that this game has this franchise, I should better say that this franchise has the Soul signature on many things, but not on the challenge. This is not a difficult game. You did have some boss fights in the previous game, but you did have levels of difficulty, and I do not believe that the previous game was that difficult. If you wanted to have a Souls-like experience, you would go to the higher levels of the difficulty, but then again, even then, the developers did take the feedback of the community for the previous game. This is a more casual approach. This is a game that will have a bigger audience that not want to bother that much into challenge and difficulty, and just have a nice game, a comfortable game that you can sit down and not feel stressed about that, with the combat that has depth, that has complex, that has many mechanics that we will be discussing later in the video, that will allow you to enjoy this game without having to worry about the stressful situations that a challenging game would give you. Now, this is going to be an exploration-based game. It's an open world, opposite to the previous one, which was a little bit more linear. And even while it is open world based, people that has already had the chance to play the game, they have said that this game it's still a little bit of story focused. The story based thing, it's more focused on the previous one, which is interesting to say the least. That being said, the exploration of the world is going to allow you to increase the power of your character without the necessity to actually hinder you that much. In this world, you will have mounts that will allow you to traverse every single open area towards the sky, the water, and ground, meaning you will have flying mounts, you will have mounts that will allow you to traverse through water, and mounts that will allow you to traverse through mainlands. Now, customization of our character, oh boy, yes, this is what everyone loves the most. You will be able to customize your lightsaber by the color of the lightsaber, the heels of the lightsaber, everything that we already had in the previous game. You will also be able to upgrade your droid, your BD. It's also going to be able to customize with the color and some parts of it. But the huge highlight, and what makes me happy the most, is the level of customization that Calcastis will now have in this game, which is huge. On Calcastis, you will be able to change not only the hair, not only the beard, not only the gear that he's wearing, but also the color of the gear. And yes, they have said that all of this that you will have right here will be able to get it in-game. There's no microtransactions that we know so far, so that is interesting to say the least. EA seems to be trying to redeem themselves with all of their later releases, but we will have to wait about that. There is indeed a pre-purchase bonus and digital deluxe bonus. But, I mean, it's nice to see that the punches are not here anymore. And maybe we will be able to make our Calcastis look like a proper Jedi. Lots of people are wanting to do so. But if you want to be just this space cowboy, you will most definitely be able to do so. Side characters. The side characters, developers have made this very clear that the side characters are going to be really important in this game. They will not only be able to accompany you through missions, they will remain by your side. Most of them, many of them will remain by your side throughout the whole adventure, but Developers have said many times that every time that you encounter a companion, you should talk to them because they would give you clues about places that you could visit in the open world. Maybe they will have stuff that they will sell, give you interesting locations, and also aid you with combat and whatnot. So every time that you encounter someone new, make sure to go with them, speak with them, and they will give you goodies, nice stuff that will enhance your experience with the game. Now, speaking about exploration of the open world, we have Zelda-like dungeons, something similar to what we have seen on Zelda Breath of the Wild. Dungeons that you will see in this place are going to be different on the sense that you will have platforming dungeons, dungeons that will require the usage of force to traverse through them, and combat-based dungeons, and they are going to be all over the world, which is something that I do not know how I feel about this. I just love the more simplistic, you would say, kind of approach where you have a main-based dungeon, which is something that we had in the previous game, which is just a big, huge dungeon that will allow you to explore it, opposite to this kind of approach where you have different dungeons that will allow you to enhance your character because there's way too many of them. So that is going to be the approach in here. You have many dungeons that will allow you to platform, combat, and use the force as puzzles, and they will reward you with skills that we will be discussing later on. Now the combats, oh boy, this is very interesting, and I'm actually quite excited to try the stances, the combat stances. We have 5 of them. The single blade, which is the regular Jedi that we all know and love, with a single lightsaber that is, think of this guy like the jack of all trades. It has power, it has range, it has crowd control. It's the all-time guy that you could basically, if you not want to travel that much into the stances, this is what you are going to be using. We also have the double blade, which is something similar to what you see with Darth Maul. It is said that this is basically used for crowd control. So if you have several enemies, you will be able to use this thing, and it's going to make easier for you. Then we have the dual blade, where you will have to use a single blade on each one of your hands. The cross guard, which is somewhat of a two-handed weapon, bigger and more damaging. And then we have the sword and blaster, which is basically going to give you a sword and blaster. Now, I want to make huge emphasis in here. On the previous game, we didn't have as many stances on the previous game, but we did have different stances that you would use for different scenarios. It was a little bit more simplistic. It was just the single enemy stance and then the crowd control enemy stance. But do have in mind, I personally, and this is something that I would like to advise to you, try one of them, see how it plays, see how you feel with it, and you will most definitely be able to defeat any kind of situation with any kind of the stances, with any of the stances. Of course, some stances will be better for some situations, but if you feel comfortable with something and you just feel like playing that thing at that moment, then by all means, you will be able to do it. It is not like a stance is going to lock you out of a situation that is not going to allow you to progress without it. No, it's just basic stances that you can decide which one would you like to keep. Now in this game we have a more trained Cal. Cal in Kestis in the previous game was a learning Jedi. He was trying to find his path. In this case, we have a more experienced Cal Kestis, both on narrative and gameplay side. As for the Force, you will always have your tools at hand. You will not feel like you're losing power and you have to regain it back again. You will always have the things. That it doesn't mean that you will not be able to improve your character. You will be able to improve your character. You do have a skill tree, but this is just making Cal Kestis, the already experienced Cal Kestis, a more powerful Jedi that can tackle the situations much stronger than before. Speaking about that, we have the skill trees. We have 3 different main skill trees. We have the survival, we have the combats, and we have the force. We haven't taken a look at every single one of them just yet, but what we do know is it is interesting. Each one of these skill trees will have a sub skill tree. Not all of them. Survival will just be survival, but when it comes to combat and force, they are going to be a little bit more specialized, and this goes hand in hand with what I told you before, where when you feel comfortable with something and you want to improve that little something. So for example, let's talk about the combat skill tree. On the combat skill tree, you will be able to focus yourself, at least early game, mid game, and if you not want to explore that much, because at the end of the day you get points by placing in here, by doing those dungeons, and if you do not want to go through the hassle of doing every single dungeon to unlock every single skill point to place on all of the places, pardon the redundance, that you will be able to do so, then might as well just find something that you feel comfortable with. I personally am just a basic guy. I think that I am going to feel comfortable with the basic single player. I am going to explore the world as much as possible, but I do believe that I am going to focus my upgrade of my first character for my first build, if you would like to call it like that. I do not know if we're going to be able to build a more specialized, pardon the redundance, build in this game, but at the end of the day, by my first playthrough, what I know that I am going to do by now is that I'm going to use a basic lightsaber Jedi, because that's how I feel like role-playing this game. And then that means that all of my early points that I get for my skill trees, I am going to dump them into that place, and it doesn't matter if I get crowded, if I get a single enemy, I am just going to be able to do fine with that single lightsaber. Anyways, if you like the game information, if you like the content, like it, pretty super appreciated. No one's told you that you're a gorgeous and beautiful person. You are indeed gorgeous and beautiful person. Remember to subscribe before you close the door, and I'll be seeing you goddamn gorgeous and beautiful people in the next one. Have a beautiful day, and goodbye.